Imagine a library that holds every book you can possibly write, including the exact story of your death. Now imagine trying to find one true page in that endless ocean. Welcome to Midnight Dread Voice. Let's dive deep into the eerie, the unsettling, and the thought-provoking. We live inside a library that never closes. It hums, it updates, it remembers every photo, tweet, and private thought we accidentally typed into a search bar. The shelves are digital, the librarians are algorithms, and the catalog is, well, everything. But here's the rub. Having every possible combination of letters, images, and opinions does not mean that we can find meaning. In fact, it may mean the opposite. Today, we'll use Jorge Luis Borges's dizzying short story, The Library of Babel, as our mirror to understand the modern internet. Borges imagined a library containing every possible book, true stories, false histories, gibberish, and the precise account of your most intimate moments, all existing simultaneously. The lesson? Infinity isn't the same as clarity. So what happens when the world's knowledge becomes a formless sea? Why does abundance often feel like scarcity? And what does that mean for how we live, decide, and believe? Let's dive in. Borges's library is simple in premise and monstrous in consequence. Imagine every book made from a fixed alphabet and fixed length. Mix the letters in every possible way, and you'll produce every coherent novel, every nonsense pamphlet, every true diary entry, including, crucially, the ones that predict your future, and the ones that lie about it. But here's the catch. Because every true book has near infinite false neighbors, a book that says, "Today the sun rose in the east," is indistinguishable on the shelf from 1,000 books that say it didn't. Every truth is hidden among an ocean of plausible lies, and the library supplies no index, no curator, no sign that says, "This one is correct." Borges wrote the story as an intellectual parable, a thought experiment about information, meaning, and the limits of language. It's intentionally unsettling because it collapses our intuition. More information should mean more knowledge. In Borges's universe, more information can mean more confusion. That tension between possibility and meaning is what makes the story still feel like it was written this week, not a century ago. Now replace Borges's ink and vellum with servers, databases, and code. The internet is not literally every possible book, but functionally it behaves similarly. An almost limitless combinatorial space of content where for every clear, verified truth, there's a near infinite entourage of misstatements, half-truths, and purposeful lies. On the surface, this is liberating. Anyone can publish a paper, a protest, a recipe, a life story. Voices that were once entirely silenced can now speak. This is the internet's moral bright side. But the library metaphor brings the danger into sharp focus. If every possible narrative exists somewhere, then the value of any single narrative becomes contingent on something outside of the content itself, on reputation, on curation, on the band of people who amplify it. The content no longer carries its own authority. The network gives it authority. Search engines attempt to be the library's index. Algorithms attempt to be its librarians. Yet these systems are not neutral. They optimize for attention, speed, and engagement. That means they amplify content that hooks, shocks, or outrages, not necessarily what is empirically true or meaningfully useful. The result is a sea of noise with islands of real knowledge, often hard to distinguish without a map. When everything is available, why does nothing feel valuable? Because value is comparative. Rarity makes things valuable. Curation assigns value. In markets, scarcity drives price. In attention economies, scarcity drives meaning. But the internet has created the illusion of abundance for everything. News, expert opinion, personal diaries, conspiracy theories, all sit on the same shelves. When every opinion can be published, the act of publishing loses epistemic weight. The same person can find 3 reputable-sounding articles supporting opposite conclusions. Which one do you trust? The answer increasingly becomes the one that fits your pre-existing network, emotional state, or convenience. This isn't simply an epistemic problem, it's an existential one. Societies rely on shared facts to coordinate. When the map of reality splinters into hundreds of private maps, coordination becomes fragile. Politics polarizes, public health campaigns falter, and trust, the oil of civil life, goes rancid. We've moved from a quest to discover what is, to a battle over what counts as knowledge. In Borges's library, the books exist. The problem is we can no longer tell which ones matter. If the information landscape has changed, then so must our roles. The romantic idea, the lone scholar discovering rare truth in dusty stacks, still exists, but it's increasingly rarer. Today, our social and intellectual labor looks more like curation. Curators evaluate, label, prioritize, and contextualize. They assemble packets of trusted sources and create interpretive frames so others can decide quicker. Institutions that once performed curation, publishers, universities, editorial desks, are underfunded or bypassed. In their place, influencers, specialized newsletters, algorithmic feeds, and community moderators. This shift has democratic pluses and perilous minuses. On the plus side, more people can shape discourse. On the minus side, gatekeeping becomes opaque and fragmented. Who decides who the trustworthy curators are? Often it's the loudest voice, not the most reliable. So what does good curation look like? It's not merely reposting, it's cross-verifying, contextualizing, linking to original sources, and acknowledging uncertainty. It's labeling opinions as opinions and separating narrative from data. The best curators build a reliable lens through which others can see the forest, not just the nearest tree. Here are practical habits to help you swim in this library without getting lost. 1. Slow the roll. If something outrages you, wait. Emotional virality is engineered to bypass reason. Pause, breathe, and consult a second source. 2. Check authority, not just format. A professional-looking website isn't a seal of truth. Look for primary sources, citations, and peer review. 3. Triangulate. Don't accept a claim on a single source. Look for multiple independent confirmations. 4. Follow the trail. Trace the origin of a statistic. Often, a meme cites a study that's been misread or misrepresented. 5. Cultivate trusted curators. Build your own network of verified newsletters, researchers, and institutions you check regularly. 6. Value transparency. Prefer sources that disclose methods, conflicts of interest, and degrees of uncertainty. These are simple habits, but they are not automatic. They are deliberate practices of a new literacy, a digital epistemic hygiene. If meaning must be carved out of the swarm, then meaning becomes an act of creation more than discovery. This is the existential turn, the oldest human quests for meaning, for purpose, for truth, now require that we be interpretive artists as much as seekers. That may sound bleak, but it has a creative brightness. If facts are not self-evident islands, then communities, arguments, and narratives become vital scaffolding. We build meaning together around shared practices, rituals of verification, and norms of discourse. We choose what to amplify and how to explain it. Yet this agency carries weight. When curators fail, when incentives distort attention to clicks instead of clarity, the social fabric frays. We must decide whether to outsource our epistemic responsibilities to the mercies of algorithmic engagement, or to rebuild institutions and personal practices that honor truth-seeking, even when it is slow and unsensational. We are at a crossroads. Will we let meaning be a casualty of infinite options? Or will we accept the labor, the slow, often unglamorous labor, of building trustworthy maps through the noise? The answer shapes everything from democracy to how we grieve, love, and remember. Borges's library was meant to unsettle. Its purpose is not to tell us that knowledge is impossible, but to show how fragile meaning becomes when context is missing. The internet has made that fragility public and immediate, but it has also given us tools and responsibility to be the librarians we wish we had. We can't, nor should we, delete the library, but we can learn to catalog better. We can slow. We can check. We can curate. In a world where everything exists at once, the greatest human skill might be the ability to make something matter. If this made you rethink what you read online, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what's one belief you once held that changed after you found better sources? Share a link or name the source. Let's build a tiny public library of better reading together. If you want a printable checklist for digital epistemic hygiene, drop a heart and I'll pin it in the comments.